Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rahman from the Foreign Office. Today we'll be interviewing the spokesperson of the Foreign Office regarding the foreign policy of Pakistan and in particular between Pakistan and India. As we all know that a lot is happening in Kashmir at the moment as we speak. More than 90 people have been killed out there. Thousands have been injured. Pellet guns are in use with the Indian occupied forces and more than 400 people, according to the official figures, have lost their eyesight. Now the problem is that at the same time there have been a lot of comments, whether we talk about Sushma Swaraj, the External Affairs Minister of India, or Mr. Narendra Modi's speech of the 15th August, or you talk about their spokesperson's version regarding what is happening in Kashmir. So there's a lot of interesting points that we will be highlighting in our today's program. First of all, let me introduce you to the Foreign Office spokesperson, Nafees Zakaria. Sir, thank you very much for taking out your time, sir. So first of all, now since Thursday is the day when you give briefing to the media and all, so we thought that we should interview you and sort of get the idea what exactly is going on as far as the foreign policy is concerned. A couple of very interesting comments, whether from Mr. Sartaj Aziz regarding Mr. John Kerry, or the Defence Minister spoke about Mr. Narendra Modi. Then the Chief of Army Staff recently issued a very strong statement that whether it's Modi or Raw, whoever is involved in sort of destabilizing Pakistan, we know how to safeguard our frontiers. Pakistan seems to be in a position where they have taken a very, very strong position. Your take on that side, sir?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I think the references that you made, in this regard, a lot of debate has gone into discussing these things on TV channels as well as in the corridors of Foreign Office. Coming first to the ongoing situation in Indian occupied Kashmir. You have rightly pointed out that more than 90 people have been martyred over there by the Indian occupation forces. More than 8,000 people are injured. And let me correct the figure of those who are suffering from eyesight, loss of eyesight because of the use of pellet guns. The figure has crossed 570 according to Alan Berry's article in New York Times. And that gentleman has covered only one aspect of what's going on in your occupied Kashmir at the moment. Since 8 July, when Ravani was murdered or martyred in cold blood, in extrajudicial killing.
Correct.
And after that, what has actually ensued after that in terms of the people who have come out on the street despite all the threats of they would get killed because of the massive use of force by the Indian occupation forces and curfew. So they defied everything. And they were out only for the funeral prayers. More than 200,000 Kashmiri youth were offering funeral prayers in several different locations all across the valley. And that speaks of the popularity of that gentleman who was murdered in cold blood by the Indian security forces. But after that, I think you will see what the steps which we took, the measures which we took, the actions which the government of Pakistan has taken, that speaks of the policy of the government of Pakistan towards this particular vital issue, which is the Kashmir. And the government of Pakistan's commitment to the Kashmiris that come what may, we will stand our ground to extend our diplomatic, political and moral support to Kashmiris movement for self-determination.
Do you believe, Zakaria Saab, now since this movement has gained a lot of momentum and this is going to continue the same way, this is what the predictions are, and the support, whether you talk about the diplomatic support or the moral support or the or any other support for that matter. Now, since I earlier mentioned it has gained a lot of momentum post Mr. Wani's murder, extrajudicial killing, I would say, by the Indian. This is absolutely what people call Indian sponsored, not even sponsored, Indian state terrorism. Now, so when it comes to Pakistan regarding taking a certain position, now it seems, this is what my earlier question was, that the government after a long time, I'm not talking about this particular government, whether it was the government of Pakistan People's Party or even before of PMLQ. The point is this time it seems that the government has taken a very strong posture. And any particular reason for that, sir? Or is it the timing, or is it the current this love-hate relationship between the two countries?
No, not really. Because mostly what we do is not in the public domain. As far as the Kashmir issue is concerned, we have been doing for ages, right? We organize a lot of events on the occasion of 5th February, which is the Kashmir Solidarity Day, when we express solidarity with the Kashmiris cause. We organize events on the 27th of October, which is known as Black Day.
Black Day, yeah.
Because when the Indian occupation forces landed in Kashmir. And in many ways, actually, I don't think so that we would be sitting in a meeting with any country having a bilateral discussion when it comes to regional issues. Under the regional issues or international issues of our concern, which prominently figures the Kashmir issue, we would always take up this issue with our interlocutors or our counterparts, whether it is Prime Minister level or at different levels. We always flag the issue of Kashmir, that this issue is the main cause of friction or problem between.
This is the first and the foremost problem.
Yeah, this
between
is
the two
the
countries, yeah.
main bone of contention. So this perception has been created because of the reason that not so much what we do goes into the public domain in terms of projection. But this time, what has happened? That you have to understand that the revolution of electronic media, which has come about in the last few less than a decade.
As well as social media.
Yeah, and the
both.
social media. That has made a lot of difference. Now, what we are doing at the moment and why this is being noticed, that, oh, government has done this, the government is doing this. So
it's
we have
visible
taken,
now.
Yeah, so it's visible now. It's visible. And besides also, we are also talking about it. Previously, maybe we were not talking about it. So now we are actually talking about it, that as to what we are doing.
The government is more vocal.
Otherwise, you see, this issue of Kashmir is on the UN Security Council agenda for the last more than 6 decades. And it is there because we always make sure, we always take up this issue with the international forums, with the UN personalities and the UN forum, that this is what is happening. And there's one thing which nobody knows actually, that in Geneva, where the UN Human Rights Commission is there, they have 3 events throughout the year. And we participate in every event, and very effectively our delegates and the people from civil society who participate in those events, they articulate the Kashmir issue.
Well, I've been a part of that delegation as well myself.
So you will agree with that.
And I totally agree, and I totally understand. But sir, a lot more needs to be done. I mean,
yes.
A couple of points. For example, the Prime Minister has written a letter to the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon. And at the same time, when you look at the statement coming from the other side of the borders, that, it really doesn't matter. They should write as many letters as they want. If their Premier is saying so, what is that supposed to mean, sir?
That is arrogance. That is arrogance, and in many ways that is showing defiance to the UN Security Council resolution. The sanctity of UN Security Council, which has issued a number of resolutions on Kashmir issue. It's an international issue. It is recognized internationally as a dispute between Pakistan and India. It has resolutions outstanding on it, and anybody who defies that, I think people should look at it from that angle. And that's the reason why we always say that when they say that Kashmir is an internal matter of India, they are actually breaching those UN Security Council resolutions. And this is the country which is actually aspiring to become a permanent member.
And a regional power.
And a regional power.
And at the same time, now, so when you talk about a fact-finding mission, this is what the Prime Minister has asked the Secretary General Saab, that, send a fact-finding mission. It seems that the Indians would never agree to it. Don't you think that there is any probability or any possibility that the UN can exert some sort of pressure on India, especially post the strategic alliance with the Americans?
Well, I think this is a very, there is no straight answer to that actually. But there is a pressure which is building up on India. The pressure is coming from various segments of societies in different countries. And these segments of societies are the civil societies. These segments, they are the proponents of human rights. They have started talking about it because the voice has gone out. Despite the fact that there's a complete media blackout for the last more than 56 days now. Despite that fact, the news are reaching to the outside world that this is the state of atrocities which is going on, the brutalities which is going on against the defenseless Kashmiris. So these gruesome stories are going out. So the pressure is building up. OIC has issued condemnation. There is the OIC special body, which is the Human Rights Commission, independent commission. That has also issued condemnation, and besides that, they have actually cautioned India to stop the bloodshed immediately. Besides that, we are aware that our envoys, our ambassadors or high commissioners in various countries, they are not only just flagging this issue with their respective host governments, but they are also talking to or flagging this issue with the human rights organizations in those countries. And in a number of countries, there had been events where they have actually raised questions as to what is happening in this Indian occupied Kashmir against those innocent people. And if you would agree, definitely you'll agree with me on this thing that even the voice has been raised from within India.
Yeah.
In the Indian civil society members, the parliamentarians, some of these parliamentarians are also raising the voice. So there are senior elements in that country as well who are raising the voice, they are questioning. And the most important part is that despite the fact that the entire Indian media, which is actually towing the official line, and the government and their allies, they are, despite that their claims that it is Pakistan which is doing or managing the things in Indian occupied Kashmir, people have denied that, rejected that idea.
Now, one of the statements from their opposition was that we don't want the land of Kashmir, we want the will of the people. So that means there is a problem, there is an internal issue. Obviously, it's a bilateral problem, but that has been recognized by the people, by the civil society of India.
And then everybody knows this logic. They actually talk on the basis of rationality that how could such a big scale movement be monitored from outside or managed from outside. So nobody is buying that idea.
Now sir, let's move on now. Since we spoke at length and in detail about the Kashmir issue and the Kashmir problem, that is there. Now, when you look at the statements of the Indian External Affairs Minister, Ms. Sushma Swaraj, who was also in Pakistan a few months ago, and then their Internal Minister was also here. But later on, we were expecting that their Finance Minister, Mr. Jaitley, would come, but he sent the Secretary of the Finance Division to Pakistan. It seems that whatever is happening in SAARC, it's useless, the concept of being meaningful doesn't exist there anymore because of the problem between the two countries. The entire region is suffering, and we always say that countries do not grow. It's the region which grows, and countries grow together then. Don't you think that India should take an initiative in that regard also? And what exactly is the stance of Pakistan?
Definitely. Actually, India, among the SAARC countries, is the biggest country, actually, in every sense. India should play a role to actually
facilitate.
Say this thing that, yes, I have a greater responsibility to carry forward this process. SAARC, definitely SAARC is, at this point in time, there are various analyses, and according to that, SAARC has not achieved what its objective, the way it should have, it could have actually.
It has been
achieved.
32 years, sir.
Yeah, it's been 32 years, but I think it's fine. You see, you have seen the other regional organizations. They have come a long way, but still they are facing problems. I don't want to name those organizations, but these organizations have spent 50 years building up themselves, but suddenly we saw them crumbling because of various reasons. Now, SAARC has huge potential because if you look at the concentration of human capital in this region, it is highest. If you look at the concentration of resources, natural resources, it is in abundance. If you look at the situation of this region, sub-region in the Asian continent, I think it is strategically a very important location.
Very important location. Look at the population, it's 1.7 billion people.
Yeah, exactly. So I think all these elements put together, SAARC potential is there. Now, how far we have been able to exploit that potential, that's a separate question. Now, Pakistan, ever since this, the present government has come, they have adopted an agenda in which they want to have our government wants to have a peaceful neighborhood, for which they will have to reach out to every country, and we are doing that. Not only that, another very important element which this government has actually taken up upon themselves as a matter of policy, a major policy initiative, and that is to play the role of facilitator within the region, because the strategic location or geographic location of Pakistan is such that it is at the confluence of three regions: South Asia, Central Asia, and West Asia. Now, the Central Asia, in which Afghanistan is also there, and the Central Asian republics are there, we provide the shortest and the most economical land route to those landlocked states,
countries,
to the Arabian Sea, and then onward to West Asia, which is affluent, and then to the rest of the world. We also provide the same connectivity to Central Asia and Afghanistan and South Asia. So I think this is what the government policy is, to act as the economic hub, to act as the energy corridor. And our direction at this point in time, in which you see major initiatives which have been taken, especially in the context of not only meeting the energy deficiency within Pakistan, but we are going ahead with having in such a sizable way that we are able to even facilitate the transportation of that energy, surplus energy, onward to other countries in the region.
Exactly, because this is a time of growth, sir. Countries like China, even India for that matter. I mean, when you talk about CPEC, definitely I'm going to go there, sir. But one more important point, I mean, this recent agreements between USA and India, whether in the logistics side or other defense packs, and then you're talking about communication, setting up of a lot of centers and transfer of technology. And other than that, I mean, the USA and the Indians, they believe they'll be able to use each other's land bases, naval bases, air bases as well. Don't you think this is going to really destabilize the strategic balance in the region, A? And secondly, you're talking about now, in the future, you never know. Indian Ocean, which was a nuclear-free zone, could be a nuclear zone now.
Well, I think there's a whole background to it, and I think you have to see the trends and the drivers, the things which are happening in this region, in this part of the world. First of all, the economic crisis which has hit very badly the first world. The international, the first world countries, they have been hit by the economic crisis one after the other, and there is up till now that economic crisis is persisting. Middle East, we can see that Middle East has a problem, which used to be a provider of energy or supplier of energy to the whole world. So there is a lot of difficulty which we see in terms of getting things from, maybe the countries may not be able to get those kind of supplies regularly and that securely which they were previously getting from Middle East. So then we look at this region where the focus has actually shifted of the entire world. This region hosts two very important major powers, China and Russia. I'm just counting those factors which, so that you are able to develop a picture, you are able to see why things are happening.
I believe that this is the century of Asia, sir.
Yes, yes.
So if it is, obviously everything is happening over here then.
Because over here, if you look at the kind of countries which comprise this region, the majority of these countries are developing countries, which means for the developed world, there's a huge surface to scratch, actually, huge ground to scratch, and there's a huge appetite in these countries for development. So which means the flow will be from both sides. Here is the demand, and there on their side is the supply. Now, in terms of investment, this region can absorb a lot of investment, because
Provided there is law and order and there is security.
well, I think law and order and security will come with the risk they have to take, actually.
Because currently,
it
sir,
comes,
if you look at Pakistan, sir, the by book example of the modern warfare, I mean of the fourth or the fifth generation warfare, we're a victim of that. Look what is happening in Pakistan, whether you talk about the Kuwait incident, I mean the list can go on
But
and on and on.
let me just clarify one point, please, before we forget. Actually, when you talked about security risk or security situation, were you specifically talking about Pakistan or the entire region?
Sir, I'm talking about Pakistan in particular, because when you talk about CPEC, for example, one of the concern is about law and order and security. You know, the army has totally agreed, and they're
don't you
totally
think that
geared up.
concern is global now? Don't you think that if you're referring to the terrorist attacks,
I mean, that
if
Europe itself, you talk about Brussels, you talk about France, you talk about Germany.
Everywhere it is
it's
taking
there.
place.
This is a new emerging concept, I would say.
Yeah.
But when we talk about Pakistan in particular, obviously India has very straight reservations and concerns regarding CPEC, though they believe that this is going to be a game changer, but they don't want that. They don't want Pakistan to grow and flourish. Obviously, there is a direct conflict of interest.
Their rationale is
I mean,
understandable.
it makes sense from their perspective. But when you look at it from our perspective, so obviously something, whenever we give support to the Kashmiris, there is a fallout factor in Balochistan or in Karachi or in elsewhere today. There was this,
So this
last
security
Mardan.
aspect. So this security aspect is not really internal as such. It has external dimensions.
Yes.
You see. So when you talk about external dimensions, so they are going to stay there, which does not mean that the people will not find any attraction to invest in Pakistan or in the regional context. I think there's we can see because of these Zarbayas, because of consolidation of because of the consensus which has emerged among all these stakeholders within Pakistan, that we need to take on this menace, which is terrorism, which is not a country-specific phenomena. It is a global phenomena, but definitely when it comes to Pakistan, it has hurt Pakistan the most.
Yes.
And we have taken this phenomena head on. So counterterrorism, our counterterrorism strategy is working. It is delivering. If you look at the statistics, the number of incidents have gone down drastically. If you look at some of the very important events which have taken place, like for example the arrest of raw intelligence officer, a senior officer of raw, and Kulbhushan Yadav, and his confession that how raw and India is actually involved in perpetrating terrorist activities and financing terrorist activities.
The best part is that for the first time, we always used to, call that there was an external involvement or external hand is there in this particular incident. Now we have started straight away naming the country. Not only naming the country, even naming the Prime Minister from the COS. I mean, that is the first time that we have heard, well, if Mr. Modi or Raw, these are your designs, then we are also fully, capable of defending our frontiers, and we know how to look after our sovereignty as well. So we'll just take a short break here. After the break, we'll return and we'll talk further about the Pak-US relationship. We'll take a short break here, and after the break, we'll return and we'll continue our discussion. Welcome back after the break. Zakir Sahab, now talking about Pakistan-US relationship. It used to be strategic at one time, then we witnessed it got transactional. Now it's not even transactional. They said it's an important relationship. And sometimes we really get confused whether we are foes or friends. What exactly is the equation like, sir?
I think it's I think we have people are talking about it. I know it's a talk of the town. We actually stopped there when we were talking about the trends and things which are happening over here. I think we need to see that how the new alliances are emerging, the new partnerships are coming up, the priorities are changing, and we see that how China and Russia have gone very closer to each other. You have also seen that Russia is opening up to Pakistan as well.
For the first time, they had joint military exercises.
Exactly, and you have seen that how China has, not only China has always been a great friend of Pakistan, but at a time when as you mentioned about the security concerns and situations, China came up with a massive investment of $46 billion, you see. So I think that has sent a very strong message to the entire world that no, the situation on ground is not what it actually appears as a matter of perception because of the messaging through media, yeah. Right? So I'm now coming back to likewise, media or maybe those who are propagating this idea that Pakistan and there are difficulties between Pakistan and US relationship. Yes, there are, but so these difficulties are always there in bilateral relationship between any countries. You see, you can see that China and USA, they have a huge amount of trade with each other, huge amount of trade with each other. Despite that fact that, and China has huge assets in USA.
Worth what, $1 trillion?
Yeah, I don't know how much is that, but
this is the kind of investment they have in their security bonds.
But they have differences as well. Likewise, you see China and India, they have differences as well. China and Japan, they have a, I mean, it's a very significant trade relationship with each other. With America, we have a long-standing relationship. It's a historical relationship. We have worked together in a very cooperative manner in many sectors. It is only after 9/11 that, because of the thrust or the focus of the entire international community and also especially the media, that the thrust has come on security issues, that everything is now seen through the prism of security. Correct. Through the prism of terrorism. And this is where people are actually try to see Pakistan-US relationship from that angle. I would agree that definitely this element is very significant.
There is, I mean, is it a correct statement if I say there's a trust deficit between the Americans and the Pakistanis?
It's a broad-based relationship between Pakistan and USA for a very long time. You see, you cannot ignore this fact. We have been friends for a very long time. We are still friends. America is, if you look at the kind of assistance which America provides to Pakistan, if you look at the kind of cooperation which has always been extended by Pakistan to America, if you look at just one example I can give you, that when the American-led coalition went to Afghanistan, Pakistan has been a facilitator, and we actually imperiled our own, they did not come without a cost, because the terrorists, they turned the guns on Pakistan, towards Pakistan. So Pakistan not only paid sacrifices.
If any country has paid the price, that was Pakistan.
Yeah, it paid the price because of others also. For a very significant part of this price actually can be attributed to our decision of actually supporting that effort which was there to eliminate a terrorist group which was working on a very large scale. We also had a threat of that terrorist element, and we have seen. So no part of the world was actually safe from this threat of terrorism. In the recent past, if you look at 2010 and 2011, I think that was a time when our relationship faced a lot of challenges between Pakistan and America, the relationship.
There were three basic issues. It was Raymond Davis, it was Osama bin Laden, and then it was Salala, if you remember, November 2011.
And then there were other also. Salala was a big incident. So I think, but if you look at from that perspective, if you look at 2013 onward, things have been up, the trajectory of our relationship has been going up. We had a strategic
How can
dialogue.
you say, sir? They've refused to give you eight F-16s. I mean, you didn't ask for 80 F-16s, 8 F-16s.
Yes.
You talk about the...
but we did get F-16 in the past as well.
I mean, in the past, sir, that is different. But now, when you talk about the coalition support fund, there is no sort of, movement on that front. When you talk about the F-16s, it's
no. I think you have to put things in perspective. First of all, that $300 million you're referring to is the CSF, right? Yeah. So that CSF is not a fund. That CSF is a reimbursement, which Pakistan is supposed to get.
Are we getting it?
Sorry?
Are we going to get it?
Well, they have paid it in the past also. There have always been difficulties. There are always procedural difficulties.
Because sir, every time, whenever there's something about payment or money or some sort of a support, they always link it to do more strategy.
No, but I think let's not forget there are many dimensions to Pakistan-US relationship. Let's not forget that we have a very strong, affluent, and influential diaspora in America. It's a sizable diaspora in America. You see, and of course, Americans, they have huge interest in this region as well, and they see Pakistan as a very reliable partner. Whatever the perception has been created, these are the things which are being developed as a matter of perception about Pakistan, about the Pakistan-US relationship. But I think we need to understand that we are not talking about, we should not look at Pakistan-US relationship from just one angle, that they have not given us F-16, so relationship is not good. They have stopped from 900 million. No, from 900 million, if they have stopped 300 million, so we are not talking about the 600 million, which is actually the funding which they have done for provided to us, or they will be providing in different tranches. We are looking at those 300 million, which is basically a reimbursement which has come to Pakistan, and that reimbursement means we have already taken action, and we are actually claiming the amount or expenditure which has been incurred on those actions which we have taken as a matter of a partnership or cooperation which we are extending to US in counterterrorism operation within this region. So I think we have to understand things in proper perspective. You can see that the number of visits to Pakistan have not decreased. You see, we have seen in the recent past there have been major.
Is it about the number of visits or about the content of that visit, sir?
Well, I think as long as you remain engaged, you are able to allay misperception if they are there. You can also bridge the gap if there are any communication.
You're talking about Afghanistan, sir. The role of India is there, the role of US is there, and it seems that they have sidelined Pakistan in one way or the other. Now, when you talk about bringing the Taliban, Shura, or those involved in the negotiation process, the Indians, they have made sure that the Afghan government should refuse to talk with them. Now, whether we believe it or we don't, at the end of the day, Taliban is also a reality. Now the point is, sir, that what sort of an influence do we have on them, so to speak? And if there is any influence, what can we do? I mean, we can bring them to the table. You can take the horse to the well. You can't make the horse drink water, sir. That is the point. Now, what exactly is the understanding regarding that particular issue?
First of all, we have to understand, all of us, we have to understand, it's about Afghanistan. It's about peace and stability in Afghanistan. So the actors you are talking about, basically, that makes an intra-Afghan affair. This is an intra-Afghan affair we are talking about.
But and that's why are they capable of taking a decision on their own, sir?
Let me explain that. So that's
the economy is totally dependent on the Americans. I mean, if you write a check, I'll function. Otherwise, I can't even pay for the government employees.
But let's not go into that area. Let's talk about the larger context, and that is the peace in Afghanistan. I don't think that any country has ever said this thing, they don't want to see peace in Afghanistan. I have not seen any country saying that they don't want to see stability and security in Afghanistan. So I think all the countries at least admit that there is a requirement to have peace and security in Afghanistan, and one way or the other, they want to be part of that, for whatever their interest may be, whatever their rationale may be. But as far as Pakistan is concerned, how Pakistan looks at Afghanistan and the situation in Afghanistan and the efforts towards restoring peace and stability in Afghanistan. One, Pakistan sees that as a purely an intra-Afghan affair, in which Pakistan sees
Afghan-owned and Afghan-led, that's what we've been hearing for quite some time.
And that's why our policy is that this process should be, any process should be Afghan.
Is the government of Afghanistan in a position that they can actually have something
which
is Afghan-owned and Afghan-led, sir?
No, but fine. But we are acting as a facilitator. Now, 3 countries are acting as a facilitator. If you look at the QCG, that QCG process, which is basically aimed at bringing peace and stability in Afghanistan.
China, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and America, basically.
But the 3 are facilitators: US, China, and Pakistan. And Afghanistan, not only as a stakeholder, but also as facilitator itself.
Is QCG still effective and meaningful, sir?
Well, I think this is what we have been telling people. You have to see things that QCG was born in December 2015. How can you expect so much from a process which is just 3 or 6 or 7 months old to deliver the? I think it is too much to ask. I think the expectations are unrealistic. We have to have
the goals and the achievements which QCG expects. Is India creating hindrances in those?
No, I think let me put things in perspective. 5 meetings of QCG have taken place, which means all 4 players
have met 5 times.
They got together 5 times, and they discussed each and everything as to how we can ensure that peace comes to Afghanistan, how we can play a role, what are the factors which can compel or which can make all the warring factions, particularly Taliban, to come to negotiation table. So we had been conveying messages in many ways. Whatever influence, every country has influence in to a varying degree with the warring factions in Afghanistan, right? Because of a number of reasons. There are historical reasons, there are cultural reasons, there are reasons because of the proximity of your region within with Afghanistan, and many other. So I think at least that gives me hope. That gives me makes me believe that QCG is, or any process like QCG, is a solution and answer. We have seen that the last 15 years.
It's an effort towards that solution.
Yes, and last 15 years, entire world's major economies, major military powers, they did everything in their capacity, but they could not achieve what they actually went therein to achieve. So the military use of military power or option is
not a solution.
It's not a solution.
It is actually a part of the problem.
So it has come. They have all come to realize this thing, and this is why we say when we came out of QCG for the 5th time, if you read the declaration or the statement, press statement, it says that yes, peace and negotiation is the only or the best way to find. Negotiation is the best way to move forward and eventually achieve peace in Afghanistan. What happened after 18th of May? That was there had been many questions, there had been many discussions, there had been many ideas about it, killing of Mullah Mansoor, and how it has translated into that things have not improved, rather it has actually deteriorated the situation. And this is what we had been saying.
What is the official stance? Was he actually coming from Iran?
Well, I think we said this thing, everything is in public domain. Everything is public domain. If they say that that person was Mullah Mansoor, then that person actually, we have traced the entire movement of that person. So I need not actually go into the details of that, but let me come back to the Afghanistan issue. Having said that, and I think this is what everybody agrees with, that peace and the negotiations, the negotiations towards achieving peace is the best option at this point in time. Now, since this being an intra-Afghan matter, Afghanistan, the unity government in Afghanistan has to send out message, a loud, clear message to the warring faction as to why they should come to negotiation table. The message that they have more to gain when they sit across the table rather than they fight in the battlefield.
Now that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, sir, a couple of more points. I mean, the visit of Mr. Rouhani, it was his first official visit to Pakistan, and certainly this issue of Kulbhushan Yadav emerged, and the headlines got changed actually. Instead of having the headlines of the visit, it was more about Kulbhushan Yadav. And I happened to talk to a few Iranian journalists also, and they were not very pleased about it. This is their point of view, this is their thinking. Do you believe that the relationship between Pakistan and Iran is very much on track, or a lot of improvement needs to be there?
No, I think we have to see, we have a traditionally historical relationship with Iran. We have we share a long border with Iran.
They've always supported you on the Kashmir cause. They have been supporting Pakistan, whether it was the 65 war or the 71 war. 90 Canadian F-86 Sabres were purchased and given to the Pakistan Air Force. Their bases were used. I mean, that kind of engagement they had with you. But now, if something is happening in Kashmir, we haven't heard much or a strong statement coming from Mr. Khatmi. Rather, on the other hand, when we see that Mr. Modi is visiting Iran and is, telling his counterpart certain jokes in Persian, and those smiles are more catchy than the statements issuing,
but this is
being
what
issued from
you see,
the Foreign Office of Pakistan.
Yeah, first of all, there are two sovereign countries. When two sovereign countries want to engage with each other, we don't have anything to say in that, you see, because we don't see two countries engaging with each other as a zero-sum game for Pakistan, or it is happening at the cost of Pakistan. Iran has repeatedly said at every level that how much value they attach to Pakistan. If you just go and examine the statements which have appeared in the newspaper in the last 4 or 5 months, I think that gives you a very good idea that Iran values its relationship with Pakistan, and so is the case with Pakistan. Yes, so is the case with Pakistan, because it's our major policy initiative that we want to have.
There is this issue in the Middle East. Obviously, there are a lot of issues that they talk about. Iraq, you talk about Yemen, you talk about Syria, the story goes on and on. But it seems, I mean, this is the general perception, please correct me if I'm wrong, that a step towards Iran means a step away from Saudi Arabia, or a step towards Saudi Arabia means a step away from Iran, because they have an issue. How is Pakistan balancing that?
No, I think our policy is very, very firm on this thing. We take both the countries as our friends. We have a very strong bond and relationship with Saudi Arabia. And likewise, we have traditionally historical relationship with Iran. Iran is our neighbor. And I think our priorities are very, very clear in this regard. We have always played a role in which we have tried to allay misperception which exists between the two countries. We have tried to bridge the gap which exists, which you have seen, which you have talked about. In 1997 extraordinary summit of OIC, when it took place, we played a role in that during that time also. Recently, when things were escalating, I think
it was about the Syrian crisis.
Yes, I think it was.
So
the Prime Minister went there. The Chief of Army Staff accompanied him, and likewise, both of them, they also went to Saudi Arabia. I think Pakistan recognizes its role, a very important role within the ambit of the Islamic world.
Thank you very much, Nafees Zakaria, sir, for
Thank
your
you.
precious time, sir.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
That's all we have for this hour. I'll see you again. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz.